Hello, everyone, and welcome to Matchbook Flashback. My name is Alec Ogg, and I will be your host. The reason I'm making this podcast is that I was at an estate sale this weekend, and something caught my eye. It was a big glass jar full of hundreds of matchbooks. They are all different colors from different times and places. Well, I bought the collection of matchbooks, and a peculiar thing happened. When I got home, I lit one of the matches, and as I looked at the flame, it's like it began to swirl hypnotically. And deep in the flash of the match, I could see a story unfold. A story held like a memory in the matchbook. So I wanted to try it again with you to see if you could join me in experiencing these stories. Let me grab a random one. Okay, this one looks like late 70s or early 80s. And it's for a residential development in Memphis, Tennessee called Countrywood. On one side it says Countrywood, Memphis, Tennessee. It's a white paper matchbook that has yellowed over the decades. And on one of the covers is the letter C. And the letter C is almost pinching a branch, kind of like someone would be chewing a piece of grass in their mouth. I'm from this area, and when the Countrywood residential neighborhood was developed in the 70s, the rest of the area was totally undeveloped. Right now, Germantown Parkway is like this busy shopping center with an IKEA, a mall, every restaurant you can imagine. There's even a mega church there now called Bellevue. But back when this matchbook was made, Germantown Parkway was a 2-lane road that went through wooded farmland. So let's light a match from this Countrywood matchbook and see if there's a story inside. And when I light it, I need you to look deeply into the flame. Deeply into the flame.
We never told anybody because we were afraid they'd think we were nuts. I was like between 35 and 45. I'm 77 now, so it was a long time ago. I was the brokerage manager for the Principal Financial Group. I had a big agency. Yeah, I had one of the top 10 agencies in that company. Okay, well, this woman and I sang in the St. George's Choir, and she did too. So every Wednesday night, I didn't like her driving, so I would drive. And it was back when Germantown Road was a 2-lane road. And I don't know if you ever went up where Countrywood was, but it was kind of down. There were little hills on each side of the road. You were kind of driving through, I'm trying to think of words to describe it. The pastures were up above the car with trees along the road. It was undeveloped is the word, road. Now, most of it was visual and not easy to explain. Well, we were driving along, and there was like a light on the right. And then we noticed it was following us. It was on the west side of Germantown Road. And we noticed it was kind of following us. And then it disappeared, but we saw it off in the distance, and then it came back. And it didn't go forward and backward. It slid sideways like you would do a boomerang. It went off to the right, came back, and when it went off to the right, it always came back closer to us. Almost like it was working up the nerve to get to us or teasing us, one or the other. I would say it was maybe 40, 45 feet long, but the light varied on it. The light was not consistent. The light would be around it, or it would be one line of lights up picture a hat with a point, like a Chinese hat. It had kind of like one of those Chinese pointed straw hats, and that was what the top of it was. And it would come and it would flip down so you could see the bottom of it. Like it was putting on its brakes, and it would come toward us with the bottom showing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. And so what are you thinking when you first see the light?
We spent a lot of time talking about what the heck it was. We didn't until it went away. We looked at each other and said, "Is that a UFO? What was that?" You know, we talked about can't be a helicopter because we saw the bottom of it. You know, we went through everything that we were familiar with that flew and tried to figure out how the light bending and distance and all that would make us see it the way we did. And then we said, no, it came too close. I think personally that it recognized the car. It saw the car. It was very strange. And we got in the choir room with all those people, and we did not tell a soul. And we kept looking at each other through the practice, kind of like, holy cow, what was that? Do we need to report it? But surely the radar picks it up. I remember we discussed while it was happening, is it silver or is it just light? It was like we couldn't tell what the surface of the thing was. Like we didn't know if it was glass or steel, or because it had some kind of a radiant. There was like an energy field around the whole thing that didn't let you see the surface of it.
And it was glowing?
I can't say it was glowing because it was, I guess the term would be glowing, but it didn't look like what we think of as glowing. It was more of a foggy light. It had a foggy texture to it. When it would move, it was like it left a trail of light behind it that bent. It didn't always do it. It like if it came toward us, the light would extend beyond it, but not like headlights. It was more like the light was made by motion. Bending the light on the earth or something. We thought it had to do with speed because we were going, is this speed? I'd let you talk to that woman, but she died.
Yeah. And how
Her
long?
name is Cindy Ansel.
How long did the whole encounter last from seeing it to it leaving?
I would say we stopped, and then we moved, and then we stopped again, and then we moved, and that's how we knew it was like tracking us. Because when we moved away and we stopped, it would be there up in the cow pasture.
And what are you feeling as you see this thing?
Confused because I couldn't nail what I was looking at. I was a little bit confused. I've never experienced fear until after. I thought, were they trying to capture us? Why were they focused on my vehicle? I was driving a Peugeot at the time. And I don't know what that would mean to them.
Had you given any thought to UFOs before you saw this thing? What was your impression before this?
Not much. I thought it was a possibility. I thought, well, I'm not the kind of person that thinks we're the only ones in this massive universe.
And did it change how you looked at things after you saw it?
It just made me feel more like there were possibilities of that we were being watched. I didn't draw conclusions. It's not my nature because I don't have any facts. I just kind of thought, well, that could be.
When it flashed the bottom, were there any colors other than that sort of foggy, silvery reflectiveness?
How can I explain it? It was circles. Let's say it was stainless steel, and it was buffed with circles, like a little circle in the middle, and then circles got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as it went to the perimeter of the whatever it was. But there was light in them. The light would switch from being in, there's space between the circles, and the circle would be like there was a wire in a circle with light, and then another one maybe a distance away, and they would alternate between that wire. I'm just remembering a lot of this. They would alternate between that wire and the space in between. So if you looked at it, it would be, and it wasn't flashing. It was not, there wasn't a set time that the light changed. You know, it wasn't like regular intervals. It was very peculiar.
At what point did you feel like you had a grasp of the size of it? Like when it was floating in the cow pasture? And how close did it get to your car?
It's hard to say. 100 feet, maybe closer. It never went over the street. It always stayed off to our right. It was big. I'm telling you, for something that was free floating and darting around and speeding around, it was almost shaped like a discus. I mean, it was a disc. It was with that hat, like I told you, on the top. But the bottom was, okay. So put a Chinese straw hat on top of it, and then have a flat bottom.
Got it. And you said you think from one side to the other, it was, did you say 45 feet?
40 to 45 feet, maybe even a little bigger because it was a distance away. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what is about 45 feet, like maybe a school bus or something.
Yeah.
Was it maybe about that long in terms of diameter?
No, it was bigger than that. This is like a school bus and a half.
Okay.
Long.
Yeah, so that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Was it ever really bright in your eyes?
No.
Okay.
You're asking some really good questions. No, it was not. The reason we left is the more it dawned on us what we were witnessing, the more fear we had, and we took off down the road. We were 15 minutes late for choir practice, so we dilly-dallied there longer than we thought.
You hear occasionally with some of these UFO encounters that people have what they call lost time, where they think they were gone for 1 minute down the road, and then they get home and it's been 30 minutes or something like that, and they can't really account for where the...
Well, I don't know if that's what it was. I know that because of what we were witnessing, we had no sense of urgency to get to choir. We felt like, oh my God, what is this? And, there was no traffic on that road back then. And I'm pretty sure that I remember that the leaves were off the tree. There were no leaves. It was fall or winter. And that's one reason we could see so well.
And was it illuminating the ground or trees around it at all?
No, that was one of the things we said. How can it be this light that's coming toward us and there's no visual ground effect?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That was part of the weirdness of it. You just brought up another point. That's why we said we couldn't even see when it darted away what it was over. Bellevue Baptist Church wasn't there, but that bare land was there. You know, that used to be, the road was down and there was like 20, 30 feet of up to get to the surface. The road was like down in a trench. You know, we had to come out Rock Creek Parkway because that other stuff wasn't there. You know, that I'm trying to think of the name of the road where Auburndale is. They don't even call it Auburndale anymore. I'm talking about what adjoins Countrywood. There's a main road that comes out. That wasn't even there. It was country. It was farmland, and there was a barbed wire fence at the top of that hill. That's why I assume there were cows or something in there.
So it was on the left side of you or the right side of you if you were driving?
As we were going to Germantown, it was on the right side. That's why I stopped, because I couldn't drive and see it. So I had to stop because I had to look around Cindy to see what I was seeing. She's the one that drew it to my attention. She says, that damn thing's following us.
Did she have any more thoughts on it?
I'm kind of telling you, I mean, we discussed it all the way there and all the way back from choir practice. And she and her husband were on the verge of getting a divorce. So she made me swear I wouldn't tell him because he would use it in a divorce.
Oh, I see.
Everything's complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. But was she kind of on the same page with you that, like, wow, we saw a UFO?
Yeah. We didn't know what the heck it was. We were pretty baffled. And then we discussed calling somebody and talking about it, but we said it has to be on the radar. They have to know it's here.
And did you feel like when you felt scared afterwards, did it feel like an intensity of fear that was unusual to you? Like, was it a heightened sense of fear, or did it just feel...
It was a heightened sense of the unknown.
Okay.
The unknown was the big deal, and the bizarre way that it operated. You know, and those lights that, you know, on a cartoon, how when somebody runs and they show the trail with some kind of marker. Yeah. You know, like the air. Okay, well, that's what it did with the light. Not all the time, but when it moved quickly. It was like it left the essence behind it.
And you said it was sort of doing a boomerang motion of going out and back.
Right. It was erratic. Very erratic. Sometimes it would be behind us, sometimes it would be in front of us, sometimes it would be alongside of us, but it was going out, back, out, back. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said the closest it got to your car was 100 feet? What did you say?
I would say 100 feet, yeah.
Okay. Which is pretty close.
I'm sitting here looking at my pool and I'm going, is that 100 feet? It wasn't that close as what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like if you're on a football field.
Okay, let's say half of a football field.
Okay, that's what I was picturing.
Half to 3/4. Never came closer than that. I wish it had, then I feel like I could have seen it better. But it had to be high enough for us to see over that berm, that little hill that was there. I'd say the hill was 6, 7 feet high.
Yeah, so it's not like you were looking necessarily out over the horizon. It was up enough.
Yeah, it was up higher. Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's all I remember. You brought out a reel that I hadn't even thought of in years.
Well, I really appreciate you talking to me about it because, you know, so many people keep their cool little stories like this secret. So I'm always grateful when people open up and talk to me about them.
Yeah, it was. We kept it a secret. She didn't tell her spouse. I did.
And what did your spouse think?
I don't even remember. I only told like 3 people, and everybody just laughed. It was almost like an entertainment.
Did you ever tell anybody that seemed like they believed you?
I don't think so. I don't know. It was like, I think I was a credible person, so it might have thrown them off. Like, why is he telling us this story?
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know. It was like people just kind of speechless over it,
Yeah.
Really, really.
And it's interesting you talking about the way the light bent when you were looking at it, because I've heard some stories of people saying that the way these craft are able to go as fast as they can is that they're sort of warping light, which warps the gravity, and that they're kind of circumventing gravity. And when they do that, it warps the light. And so the way you mentioned that, it made me think of that theory that I'd heard.
That's very interesting. I hadn't even thought of it that way. But it had something to do with the speed. I said that earlier. I mean, it did. If they went away fast, that's when the beam was kind of left behind. I just remembered something that I hadn't thought of. We spent a lot of time talking about there were no apparent windows. Like, how did they see? Because there were no apparent portholes, windows. There was no apparent door. Like, the bottom door didn't drop down or anything like that. I mean, what I'm saying is it looked like a solid piece of some kind of alloy of some sort. I mean, the closest thing I could say is it wasn't stainless steel, but it was like what you could do with stainless steel. But it had lights on it. And the lights were like, remember when they came out with those lights where they were encased in a tube? I think they still have them around. They're lights that are encased in the tube, like Christmas lights, but they use them in bars and everywhere. Well, these were kind of like that, but there was no space in between. Like, there weren't bulbs or anything, and it was a solid light. Like the circular lights on the bottom were solid. It was more like fluorescent. What I mean by fluorescent, solid light. And it was a white light, a very white light.
And did you notice any sounds?
No sound. We even rolled down the window at one point to see if we could hear it.
And it was silent?
Yes, it was silent. I think later we might have told the choir director, Nancy Sutton. I think we finally got the nerve to tell her why we were late that day.
I guess you don't remember how the choir director reacted?
No, I don't. She probably doesn't even remember we told her. But
these kids with their excuses for being late.
Anyway, it was pretty wild experience. I'm kind of glad you brought it up again. I haven't thought about it in decades.
Yeah, it's really a cool experience, and I appreciate you telling me about it. Yeah, do you have any other any stories that come to mind? I always have to ask because some people do have stuff. They've seen some strange.
There is a good story about intuition in this house.
Yeah, hit me. What is it?
Well, we had put a contract on a house at Cape San Blas, and I was going down from the lodge down toward the front gate on the gravel road, and I had this feeling that we needed to get out of that contract. And it was like, I came back to the house. I said to Normie, oh my God, I don't know why, I can't explain it, but we've made some horrendous mistake. Well, the woman called me about a week later and said, I have to send everything back to you. It's wrong. And she sent everything back, including the check. And I sent her a check for her FedEx cost and put a letter in there that I was not returning any of the paperwork, that I was not going to buy the house. And it was a great house. It looked, 3 sides of it looked out to the Gulf. And I don't know if you've ever been in the Cape San Blas, but the beach there is glorious. So if you ever get a chance to go to that state park there, it's just a beautiful view. I mean, the water there is incredible. So anyway, it was the house it was on right there, blah, blah, blah. The very next hurricane, which was that season, we drove over there after that hurricane. Not only was the house gone, but the land was gone that it was on.
Wow. And
I feel like that's some kind of a knowing that I got. And if I don't follow those knowings, I'm always in trouble. Well, I enjoyed talking with you. You put me in a reel I'd forgotten about.
Well, as you can see, the match has gone out. And as the smoke clears, I want to thank you for sharing that UFO encounter experience with me. And why should we have all the fun? Maybe you could share this episode link with a friend so that they can enjoy it too. And this is a new show, so a 5-star rating would go a long way to help this show grow. Anyways, I hope to see you again next week because I have another match to light.